Well, welcome everybody. As you're coming on board here, I'm going to give it just a few minutes to allow others to join us. And as you can see, I've got a little disclaimer here that we like to share with you up front so that you understand what you can or cannot expect from tonight's presentation. But welcome to the College Aid Pro open hours. My name is Dan Bissig, and I'm one of the College Aid Pro experts on the staff, and excited to be with you this evening to try to answer some questions that you may have. What I'm going to ask you to do for me is put those into the Q&A section. And again, just realize we are not here to give you tax, legal, or investment advice. That's something where you absolutely need to seek that advice from a professional that you hire to work with you as far as implementing any strategies that are going on out there. But excited to be with you this evening after a nice long weekend. For many of you, I'm sure that the college process has probably changed, or it's progressing, as you're going through this process. One thing I did want to do here, sometimes families ask as we're going through this for some details about calculating their home values. And so I'm going to go ahead and actually share that link with you right now. Hopefully you can see that. That I've put in there. And then one other one that's really important is the one that gets you to our software, which is the mycap.collegeaidpro.com. So there's that link as well. But anyway, one of the other things I thought I would do this evening is I am going to go in and kind of walk you through a couple of things on the software itself. I think it's always helpful to have a sense of what's going on, and especially as we're coming up through kind of the next phase of the process. I mean, if you think about it, many students have already submitted a lot of their applications, although you still may be, your students may be doing some of that, or students, if you're on this tonight too, that may also be happening, where you've got some colleges that you're submitting a little later here, because there's plenty of schools that have regular decision deadlines that come, a little bit further down the road. But let me share my screen with you here, and just want to show you that, one of the things I love about our software, and it's the reason I decided to join CAP when I did to work with them, is the fact that you've got some great tools, especially if you do the upgrade. And to me, it's worth the upgrade, the value of the upgrade to work on this, because you're going to move from the process of applying to colleges to then dealing with the whole conversation about, okay, have I gotten a fair offer from these schools? And so by doing an upgrade to the Scholar program or the valedictorian, the difference being the Scholar program gives you access to the software for a full year. So you've got access to not only the first 3 colleges that you had access to for free, but then you actually get the chance to put in any number of colleges, over 3,700 colleges that we have in our system, as well as all the fantastic scholarship details that are in there. I mean, we've got a team of people that's all they do all the time, is constantly refining these, because as you can imagine, it can be complicated. I mean, colleges change the rules of the game as things go along, but we want to give you the very best and most up-to-date information that we can. So our team does an incredible job, led by Wendy, who's in charge of that. But what I love about the software is this whole process. If you do the Scholar, that you can go in here and you can talk about affordability. Okay, you can deal with how you're going to pay. And not only that, but so I'll show this to you. I'll kind of break this down. Let's go into like the University of Alabama here. And what this program does is it gives you the ability to plug in all the numbers. I mean, you can get really detailed about, okay, what were the tuition costs that actually came through, and the room and board and the books and the travel and miscellaneous expenses. All those things will flow in as you start receiving those financial aid award letters over the next few weeks, next few months. In addition to that, then you've got the ability to hop in here and take a look at how you're going to pay for it, meaning, what pre-approval amounts have you already put in there? Moms and dads and or students, how have you talked about this? And where's the money going to come from? Is it coming from existing savings accounts that you have, or parent pledged assets? Whatever it might be, even maybe sometimes grandparents sometimes step in here. And then will loans become part of your solution? If they are, we need to take that into consideration. What I hope does not happen is that you get financial aid offers from the colleges and they just stack them full of plus loans, mom and dad. Those are the parent loans for undergraduate students, where you can loan up to the full gap or the funding gap that exists. And so, if that comes into play, that obviously would come in here, but I hope that's not going to be the case. And then finally, how you're going to deal with any remaining funding gap that exists. So this, to me, makes the software worth it, because you've got the ability for every single college, if we go back to it here, to really talk about, what this looks like. Okay. It's just really, really important that you get a chance to do that. And most importantly, that you can try to fill this, like Stanford in this case is 100%, because they're a very, great school when it comes to giving out need-based financial aid, quite frankly, but other schools are not as much. The University of Alabama happens to give a lot of merit aid away. But the other thing that I love, and I'm going to tell you right now, I personally think that everybody should go into the compare and appeal, and most importantly, that you should put in the actual financial aid award letter that you receive. Everybody, because it's the only way that you're going to be able to get total transparency and compare these schools apples to apples. So plug those numbers in, upload your financial aid award letters, and then plug in the cost details, the grants that you receive, and any loans. And notice we don't put plus loans in here because we, again, don't believe that it should be part of your final financial aid offer from the colleges. So just be careful about that, but do everything that you can to get those financial aid appeal letters put in here, or excuse me, the award letters in here, so that you put yourself in a position in the future where you may be ready to appeal an offer that's been given to you. And don't forget, we can help you do that. We have coached people through making financial aid appeals to colleges. Last year, I had one family that I worked with where we got another $15,000 per year. Folks, that's real money. I mean, that's significant dollars coming back to that family because we were able to do that. And so it all comes down to your circumstances and the types of colleges that you applied to. But again, use the software for just the great things that you can do, the great information that you can put in here, starting with the dashboard, with the schools that have been applied to. If you still need to shop for colleges, we've got great information that's in there about that, including the advanced search tool that's right here, where you can really dive into what you're looking for. On top of that, the ability then to deal with the affordability side, because again, remember, it's nice to take a look at the schools, but you've got to make sure that you can afford them in the end. And what I love about this is the fact that what we're showing you with any of these schools, let's just kind of go over here a little bit, let's say we're looking at the University of Iowa, for example. The total cost we have to come up with is $164,000. And in this sample case, we have 80,000. And so we've got to come up with another $84,000. Where is that going to come from? Well, one option would be, you're looking at traditional 10-year loans. And granted, that's a combination of both the students and the parents. But the idea here is that you're trying to understand that, hey, if we do that, that's $937 per month that we have to come up with as a family for the next 10 years. And if this student, for example, is majoring in computer and information sciences, well, look at this. They're going to make about $3,864 or net, about $3,864 a month. So, can you justify that? I mean, does that make sense in that particular case? And it very well may, but then you look at a school like UCLA, my goodness, it's almost $300,000. We still have that same $80,000. We still have to come up with $216,000 to pay for the school. Does it make sense to be paying $2,400 per month on a traditional 10-year note, or even on a 25-year note? That's where you're actually stretching that for 25 years based on, it's called the income-based repayment option at almost $1,400 a month when you're making $4,408 for that same kind of degree coming out. I don't think we can justify this. I mean, that would be really, really hard for anybody because that's just loan payments. So again, just keep that in mind. Use the software effectively to help you navigate your way through the process and really come up with schools that are going to be a good, not only academic fit and social fit and geographic fit, but most importantly, a good financial fit for your family. So let's take a look at some questions that we have here. Um, let's see, somebody has said, will we receive a recording of this CAP office hours? Yes, yep, you should be receiving that. Thanks for coming to this tonight. So that should put you in line for that. In the current FAFSA 23-24, separation means legal separation or informal separation. According to the FAFSA 24-25, separation means only legal separation. It's confusing as the current year FAFSA accepts information for separation, and next year even applications won't accept it. It takes time to get legal separation. Absolutely shocking. Do you know anything about this change? Thank you. You know what, I wish I could tell you, part of the problem with this whole new FAFSA, and for those of you that are on this session tonight who may or may not realize this, but there's some really big changes coming to the FAFSA that are supposed to go into effect October the 1st of next year. And so that'll be for the 24-25 school year. All kinds of things when it comes to divorce, when it comes to business values, when it comes to the number of questions. I mean, they're reducing the number of questions down from over 100 down to like 36 or 38. When it comes to benefits that you receive, I mean, all kinds of things are changing, including currently the elimination of the multi-student discount. What that means is if you have more than one child in college at the same time, then currently you get a break on your expected family contribution. Let's put it this way, if you've got a $30,000 expected family contribution, which by the way is changing to the student aid index next year. So the student aid index is what they're going to call it. Same thing, by the way, just a new name. But what's going to happen is usually that 30,000 would be split about 15, give or take, per child. Well, in the future, it's going to be 30,000 per child. Now think about that for a minute, because that could just totally rock your world as far as how you were paying for college. But it's definitely something to keep in mind. And so just know that, these kinds of changes, as well as this change that could be happening with separation, is going to be messy. I mean, it's going to be a messy transition that's going to happen. And we really don't know how the private institutions are going to handle their own situation, because remember, there's about 200 private colleges and universities out there that also require the CSS profile in addition to the FAFSA. And that's where they kind of set their own rules, and do what they want to do. So we're just going to have to see. My EFC is very high, more than the cost of tuition. I have twins trying to get into expensive schools. They don't have extremely high SATs. Is there any hope to get some merit aid? Well, there's more information that I'm missing on this whole conversation. Unfortunately, I can't answer that for you, because you have to know that merit aid, and let's define merit aid. Merit aid is given to students in one of three ways. It's either based on athletics, academics, or talent. Those are the three types of ways that merit aid are given out by colleges. And so it's hard to say. I mean, did your students apply to colleges? You say they're expensive schools. Well, they may not give out any merit aid. Let's not forget that there are a whole bunch of schools out there that have no merit aid, but they give a lot of need-based aid out. And so it's going to depend on what that looks like and what the stats look like. I mean, the good news is if you use our software again, you've got the ability to actually tap into this and see, what are the requirements. Like, let's use Alabama again, because it's just so easy and transparent to see what this thing looks like. So if you go in here, we can see down here what it takes to qualify for scholarships based on GPA and or test scores, even understanding that some colleges, of course, are test optional and will continue to be test optional. But in some cases, what you discover is the more competitive scholarships, you're going to run into a case where there may be test scores that are required to get those. Best example I can give you is like the University of Kentucky has scholarships that only come as far as qualifying. It's two ways. Either you have to have a perfect 4.0 unweighted GPA, and or you have to have a 3.75 or 3.8 GPA and a certain ACT score, like a 31 or a 33, for example, or 34. So you've got to just do your homework. And, I would encourage you to use our website and use, the MyCAP to check that out to see what it looks like. So that would be my best advice there. As you know, the big state schools with good engineering programs don't give much merit. That's true. And the engineering specific schools only seem to bring their 80,000 down to about 65. What should we be looking at for engineering? Well, my advice would be to cast a wider net. There are definitely some schools. I mean, I mentioned Alabama, they've got engineering. It just depends on what level of school you're looking at. I mean, if you're going to go after the big boys, meaning the MITs, the Carnegie Mellons, places like that, you're going to pay big money. But what about a school like Purdue University? You know, Purdue, even as an out-of-state student, is still reasonably priced compared to $65,000 per year, by the way. And so I would spread, and look a little wider. There may be options out there that you haven't even thought about. It just depends on how big a deal it is. And it's really ironic that you mentioned engineering, because there have been enough studies done that the vast majority of engineers make about the same amount depending, or no matter what college they come out of. Now, granted, you may get some opportunities from some schools based on the networks that you have and so forth, but they all kind of level out, and so just be careful, don't put yourself into a bad situation with that. That's my opinion. Why is the institutional EFC higher than the federal? And can we appeal for need-based aid down to the federal EFC? So the first answer is because institutional often takes into consideration home equity. That's why. And so federal does not. And so the answer to your question is very unlikely. If a school's using the CSS profile and the EFC is higher with the institutional, then that's likely the EFC number that they're going to run with. It would be very uncommon that they would go the other direction. So, but that's the reason it's based on your home equity. For a family with a junior, would it make sense to book an appointment with you before filling out the FAFSA to review finances? And then second appointment to go over FAFSA before submitting, and third appointment to review offers, appeal strategies. Absolutely. I mean, you have to know that that's what we do. We were just looking at the numbers this year, and we helped a ton of families this year completing their financial aid forms and reviewing it. Tons and tons of 1-hour sessions that myself and other experts within our group did. Just coaching families through all these things, because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. You don't realize the ramifications that come into accidentally putting the wrong information down. And so, yeah, I think it could pay off for you. Think about it this way. If you spend, a couple of $100 or even a couple of $1,000 compared to the huge amount that you're going to spend for college, and let's face it, colleges are not cheap, so to me, it's absolutely worth the money for you to go through that process. And the cool part about that is that you're in the driver's seat. You can decide when you want to have those 1-hour meetings with us so that we can give you the best advice and coach you through the process. Because remember, college funding is our deal. I mean, we're trying everything we do or we can to help families make good decisions when it comes to picking the right colleges and not put themselves into an incredible amount of financial jeopardy when the financial aid offers start rolling in the senior year. Is it worth trying to ask schools to match merit aid from another school? Maybe. I mean, I can tell you it can work, but it all comes down to whether or not you have comparable schools that your student has applied to. And here's what I mean by that. You can't take an Ivy League school and compare it to a state school. There's not going to be any comparison or any conversation that's going to take place, quite frankly. But let's say that you've got some private schools, other private schools that the student has applied to, and they're known for merit aid, known for giving out merit aid. And let's say that there are other schools within their conference, schools that also that they even play sports against. And you might think that's kind of a weird way to compare them, but the truth is they're likely competing for the same kinds of students in those schools. If school A gives a bunch of merit aid and school B gave a lesser amount, then yes, you've got some leverage that you may be able to go back and use that with that other school to see if they'll bump the merit aid. So that's why I say it depends. Getting additional merit aid from public schools can be very difficult. Privates absolutely can do things that publics can't do, which is that they can discount their tuition rates. If they want your student bad enough, they can manipulate the numbers to reduce that price. However, I want to also be cautious with you all to make you aware that you need to make sure that that number is not only good this year, but it's going to be good in years 2, 3, and 4, because you don't want to get a surprise that you get into that school and or your student gets into that school and then you discover, oh no, the next year they bumped the price on us, and now it's becoming a real strain on our family. Thanks on the engineering, great advice. I have seen the stats you mentioned on your app about starting salaries. Yeah, so it's really, really interesting. I'm super proud of our team for a whole lot of reasons. One of them is that whole deal where we're trying to give you a glimpse into how much a person makes coming out of any college with any particular degree. And by the way, that's going to be expanded in the future, so you might have to be a little bit creative right now, but I'm just telling you, it's dynamite information, because you're going to start to see that there's just not a huge difference, with those kinds of salaries. The other thing that you really ought to pay attention to, and it's something that I promise you we're going to be known as, is well, in fact, let me just show it to you. It's this whole thing, which is right here in financial aid. It is called the Merit Aid Transparency Grade. Have you guys heard about this? By the way, there's all kinds of people starting to talk about it. It's the buzz that's happening out there, but it's all about trying to help you, the consumer, understand how easy is it to know what kind of merit scholarships that we may get from this college. And that goes back, by the way, to the question that came out from somebody who was asking about, the chances of getting merit scholarships. Well, look, if they've got a D or an F when it comes to their merit transparency, good luck, okay? But with a school like Alabama, it's very easy for us to look down their list down here and see what kinds of scholarships your student may receive. And so, I mean, if nothing else, use that merit aid transparency to help you know what you've gotten or what you potentially could get from that school. It really can be a game changer for you, okay? Okay, let's see. Some of the CSS participating schools don't need non-custodial parents info on the website. Do they really not need non-custodial financial aid information at all? They really don't. Yeah. Yeah. So what they're talking about here is that if you do a Google search, it's really the easiest thing that you can do, which is typing in CSS profile colleges. Then you will see a total list of all the colleges that require the CSS profile. And over on the right-hand side, there's some columns, and one of those columns is titled non-custodial parent, and it'll have a yes or a no on it. And so the reason that's important is if you're in a divorce situation or a separation situation, if it says that you need a non-custodial parent, then they really do mean it. They mean that the custodial parent is going to use the student's College Board login details to go ahead and complete their side of the CSS profile. And then the non-custodial parent actually has to go in and set up their own College Board account to be able to complete their side. So make sure that you do your homework on that, because you don't want any surprises. But if they say they don't want it, they really don't want it, okay? Are we required to tell the school about a private scholarship? How does that affect our aid for the next year? Yes, you are. Let me explain why. If you understand the way the financial aid process works, there is overall a cost of attendance for every single college. Okay, that's what, in fact, you can even, again, see that even here. So the cost of attendance here, what we're looking at again is Alabama, out of state, is $50,254. We try to help by showing a projection of what we expect it to be for the fall of the next year by giving a bump of 3%. And you have to realize that could be different. But we're trying to help in that case. But again, the reason it's such a big deal is because you've got to know the details. I mean, you've got to really understand that with that college, if you follow the letter of the law, it says that you have to report all outside private scholarships to the institution, because they're not supposed to give you any more money than the cost of attendance. And so that's why it's possible that a student could actually have a merit-based scholarship reduced. It's unfortunate, but it can happen. And or suddenly a student has additional loans put on the table instead of some merit aid. So just be careful with that. But yes, you do have to disclose that to the school, to the financial aid office. Can we assume that the aid given this year will be comparable to what, well, actually, we'll get for the entire 4 years based on the CSS profile? Again, that comes back to my observation. The only thing I can't tell you is what your future income is going to look like, your assets are going to look like, your home equity is going to look like if the school takes home equity into consideration, the cost of the school. I mean, all of those things come into play when it comes to the 4-year projections. And so while we do our best to give you an idea of what that looks like, you have to know that your financial aid offer can indeed change from year to year based on all those variables. Do you know of any art schools or colleges in the Northeast that offer good merit financial aid? You know what, I really don't. I mean, art schools that's a unique situation. Maybe you look at schools like Oberlin or Otterbein in Ohio. I might give those suggestions to you. In the Northeast, wow. Again, here's what I would suggest that you do, okay? What I suggest that you do is do the upload or upgrade to the software, do the search for schools, and if you do then the advanced search, you can come in here and let's just say we're going to look at, I don't know, Northeast. So do we want to look at like Massachusetts? Let's put that in there. And then, I'm just going to show you an example here, okay? But the idea would be, let's see, do we have any? So there's any major. Well, we've got visual and performing arts. And, can we go in here and let's just do any scholarship and let's just see what happens. Not sure what we're going to get here, if anything, but well, you can see that we got some school options. And again, this is the cool part about this, is it shows you some of the schools that have popped up that are, showing in that offer that. So again, we could show the scholarship money. So all this has done is it's just, recalculated and put things in here. But the other thing that it does that's kind of nice, look at this, is it shows a funding gap that's here so that you have a sense going in. I mean, here's Curry College, $192,000 funding gap that still exists and so forth. But this is why you should, again, do the upgrade to the Scholar program. It's $149. It is well worth it. Quite frankly, I think it's a no-brainer even to do the valedictorian, because what it does is it gives you the same software for a full year. And by the way, just so we're all on the same page here, after a year, what ends up happening is the cost goes to $4.99 a month. I mean, come on, think about that. Think about what you might spend every month on a Starbucks or a coffee or something. But anyway, the valedictorian, the advantage there is not only do you get the software, but you get a 1-hour consult with somebody like me or one of our other experts on anything you want to talk about. And so you can be very strategic about when you want to take advantage of that 1-hour consult. It can be to help you pick colleges. It can be financial aid questions, FAFSA or CSS profile questions. It can be appeal questions. It can be anything. It can help you, map out how you're going to pay for college. So again, that's why you only get, just so we're clear on this, you don't get the advanced search tool or the other thing that's in here, which is a scholarship search tool. You only get those by doing the Scholar or the valedictorian. So just keep that in mind. Okay, I've answered all the questions. Let's do this. You guys might have some more that come up. I'd be happy to answer what I can. If something that you got is just way too deep in the bushes, I'll let you know, that it's something that you're probably gonna need to schedule a 1-hour consult with us to be able to do it. But take a look at this. This is the scholarship search tool. So, we've already talked about the fact that the merit scholarships, those that are offered by the colleges, are in the software. Very easy to get to. I mean, total transparency as far as working through that. But in addition to that, we have this private scholarship search tool that's in here. So what this does is it's helping you. It's 365 pages long. And you can go in here and you can choose things. Let's go back to, well, you were just asking about art, for example. I'm just going to go with the arts. And so there's 5 pages of scholarships in here. What about if we went in and instead we went with visual arts? Is that going to be in here? That might not be. So it looks like what they've done is they've actually broken it down. They've done a better job of breaking things down up top here. But you get my point, okay? The other thing is, is it, if we only want to look at, so let's do this, let's clear this out for a second here. And if we only want to look at scholarships that are based on financial need, well, there's 95 pages. Or how about scholarships that are renewable? How cool would that be? In other words, your student gets a scholarship and they get it year after year after year, all 4 years that they're in college. Well, there's 70 pages of those types of scholarships in here. You've also got the ability to do it based on, where you live. If you want to look specifically for colleges that are in, I don't know, let's go with, let me come down here for a second. Let's say we're looking at New Jersey. Well, there's 2 pages of scholarships here. What if I change that to opportunities in New York? Well, now we're up to 3 pages. So again, these are specific scholarships that are close to your region where there could be an opportunity there. If I again go back to all the states, we also have the opportunity like this one. You can go over here and you can choose anywhere from as little as $100 all the way up to over $10,000. Now let's see what happens. Well, so here you go. There's 26 pages of scholarships that are over $10,000. Now I want to be very clear on something here. Remember that the more zeros you add to the scholarship, the more competition you're going to receive. And so it's just important that you know that going in. That's why some of the biggest scholarships, for example, the Coca-Cola scholarship, which by the way has already been closed for the year. The AXA Financial Scholarship, another one, or it's AXA Equitable. But there's others, like the Burger King Scholarship, which I think goes until 12/15 is out there. All kinds of great places that you can search for scholarships. And you're going to find a lot of those right here within this database. This is $9.1 billion worth of scholarship money and connections that are free to you based again on doing the upgrade. Let's see. For a kid with a strong academic and test scores, does it make sense to hold off on applying for private scholarships until after receiving award offers? Seems like a lot of work, and they end up reducing merit awards from universities. So look, I understand what you're asking. It kind of stinks, doesn't it? If you think about it, that there's a scholarship offset if your student gets money. The truth of the matter is, I still think it's worthwhile to go for scholarships. The irony of this is there are scholarships that are available to young people as early as, grade school, middle school. I mean, there really are. There are options that are out there that early. There's like a marbles contest that's out there for someone who's in grade school. There are essay contests and arts contests and speaking contests. I mean, all kinds of things that are out there that students can apply for. It's the whole process of actually doing it. That's what takes time. It's really, really important that you do that you understand the way that works. So in my opinion, it's better to start early. It's better to actually build a file of potential scholarships that your student is going to go after. And without a doubt for you to, your students to reuse great essays that they've written. I mean, why not, right? If they've got an essay, for example, on challenges they faced and how they overcame them, why not reuse it? And so again, it's truly all about proactively going after them. You get to decide. Remember, you're in the driver's seat, moms and dads, with your students, or students, you too, as you're trying to decide when you're going to do it. But the one thing you have to know is some of the biggest scholarships all take place in the fall of the senior year. So there's no way to hold off on those. If you're going to get the big money, you got to go for it. Somebody asked here whether you can split a 1-hour consultation into 2 half-hour sessions. That's something you would have to work out with the person that you're working with. Traditionally, it's not the case, but they may be willing to do that depending upon what's going on. And quite frankly, it would be hard. The bigger deal is it's hard for us to keep track of that. I don't know how we keep track of that type of situation. So I guess my answer would be, unfortunately, no. All right. Let's see here. We received an acceptance letter with a merit scholarship. Congratulations. But there's no mention of financial aid, and we can't seem to check our financial aid status for the school online. Does the aid information usually come separate on a separate form later than the acceptance letter? The answer is yes. In fact, you're going to probably find that a lot of times that financial aid offer won't even come in until after the first of the year. It'll be sometime in January, February, March maybe even as late as April. Hopefully not that late, but with some of the more selective colleges, it could be. And so what that means is you're just going to have to be patient. Eventually, you're either going to get an email notification or you're going to stumble upon it in the students portal. And for those of you who know what I'm talking about, moms and dads and students, that's where the students already received an email from the school saying, hey, thanks for applying to our school. Here's your school username and password so that you can get into your portal to see what's going on with your application and or your financial aid. And so sometimes it's just a matter of keeping up with that. But the one thing I will tell you, you absolutely positively have to do everything that you can to make sure that your students are engaged in their email. I realize we've got an entire generation of young people that love to send those text messages out, okay, or the tweets or whatever you want to call them. But the fact of the matter is the colleges all communicate with emails. And so even in the future, they will. You do not want to miss anything. Okay, it could really be a catastrophic effect if you miss an important email that got sent, from the college on anything related to the situation that's going on. So watch it out, or watch out for it when it comes to admissions and or financial aid notifications. Is there a discount for the software upgrade for twins? There is. What you could do is you could send an email to support@collegeaidpro.com. So again, support@collegeaidpro.com, and just mention that you have twins, and we will absolutely help you with that. Because that's it's a big deal to have two going through it. And by the way, just so we're clear on that also, when you have twins, you definitely want to have separate accounts for them because they may be choosing different colleges, right? But the one thing I want to caution you about is realize that when you put the information in, be very specific about putting those details in there about the fact that you've got, the first child and a sibling, and that sibling has the same graduation year as that other child. Because when the system then is calculating your expected family contribution, currently it's splitting it in half. Now that will be changing because I can promise you our software will be upgraded and modified to reflect the new changes that are coming. But right now, that's the way that things are. So if you're still applying for schools, you of course need to know that that's the way it exists, at least for this year. Just to clarify, do you hear about merit awards in the fall and need-based awards in the spring? It depends on the schools, but in most cases, yes, merit awards will likely be awarded in the fall, unless a college does indeed wait until the spring. I mean, I can tell you, for example, Purdue University waits until the spring to send out their merit awards and their need-based financial aid awards. So the answer is it depends on the school. You're going to just have to do your research. A lot of times colleges will disclose on their website how they handle that. And so I would encourage you to go in there and check it out. They'll say that if you applied on this date, you're going to get your acceptance by this date. You also get merit awards on this date, and you might get your financial aid offer on this date. Others, well, quite frankly, do a terrible job of it. They don't give you any disclosure, and so you're really stuck with maybe making a phone call to their admissions or financial aid office to find out when those dates will take place. But we love those schools that make it real transparent on you. So, the name of the game right now, folks, is to find as much money as you possibly can to help reduce the cost, right? And for those of you who have younger students, I love the fact that you're on this tonight. I hope that you're using the software to have really good conversations as a family. Once again, it's all about truly understanding what's going on with the product. Okay, let me do something here real quick. Let me stop sharing for a minute so that I can get to the right spot. But what I'm going to tell you is that you truly need to have a sense of what the right financial fit is going to be for you as a family. Okay, it's really, really important that you do that. You don't want to put yourself into jeopardy where you are applying to schools that are, going to be tough on you financially. In the end of the day, at least that's my opinion. That's why, again, we're really trying to do everything we can to coach families to have a transparent conversation up front so that you guys are looking at these numbers. You're seeing that a school that's the price tag of Stanford can be as low as almost $17,000, understanding that what that also means is that you're also dealing with the fact that we're looking at a school that has a lot of need-based aid, or Tulane University, that kind of a situation. It's about half price. The University of Alabama, again, half price. The University of California is not. I mean, it's the full price for this particular family. And, just some of the others that I put in here just to kind of illustrate the way things work. I mean, look at the University of Maryland for this family. University of Michigan, in this particular case, came through with a little bit of money. In the same way with the University of South Carolina. So it's just important that you're having open conversations about all of that kind of stuff, okay? Let's see, we've got a couple more questions here. How does one find out how to appeal an award letter? Does each school have something on its website on how to appeal? That's a great question. It's very possible that a college will indeed have some discussion on their website about how to handle it. So for example, there may be a form that they expect you to complete. There may be the expectation that the student's going to handle the conversations, or that there's going to be an email that has to go on. I mean, it's all about following their protocol as far as how to do it. You don't want to step across the line. I don't know if any of you have ever watched the movie Admissions. It's pretty funny. It deals with Tina Fey as an admissions person at Princeton University. There's just some really funny scenes in it that deal with the whole admissions process. But I often think that in general, these financial aid offices are sitting back doing the same thing. They're trying to figure out, okay, who's going to appeal? Why are they going to appeal? How are we going to handle appeals and all those kinds of things? And so make sure that when you're ready to appeal, that you've got a legitimate reason to appeal. And that goes back to a conversation we had earlier, which is, it's possible that it could be that you've had a, financial circumstance that's taken place, where something pretty broad has happened in your household. Maybe a parent has been disabled, or there's been a death in the family, or there's been bankruptcy, or any number of things that could change the way things are today compared to the way they were in the past. So be prepared for that. Know this, they are likely going to always ask for a paper trail. They're not going to just take your word on something. They're absolutely going to expect you to prove to them what's going on. And so that's something that's going to be part of the process. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions. Let's do this. Once again, actually somebody else just popped one in here. So let's see what we've got here. Oh, hey, you're welcome. Glad to help. If your kid is awarded a merit scholarship when applying as an out-of-state kid, but the family status changes to in-state before the semester begins, will the college change the amount of their merit aid award? Very interesting question. And I have to tell you, I don't know the answer. And let me tell you why. When it comes to be considered in-state versus out-of-state, I understand that there's a geographic location, meaning you physically moved to that state, but you have to know that traditionally, in order to qualify as an in-state student, you have to have been in that state for a minimum of 12 months. You normally have to change the title of your car over. You have to pay taxes. You have to be officially, set up to vote in that state. All these kinds of things. And I realize in this day and age of, us being able to do things virtually, that, that's pretty easy to make a move. But to get in-state versus out-of-state is really tricky. So if that's what you're hoping to do, don't be surprised that you have to jump through a lot of hoops to make that happen. It's not just as simple as moving across the border with these colleges, okay? The other thing I will tell you is it's also important to realize that if they did indeed notice your situation. So I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I worked with a young lady who, and I'll just give you specifics. She lived in the state of Kentucky with her parents, and then her father got transferred to South Carolina with a job. Well, because she had applied while still living in the state of Kentucky, she got the merit scholarships in the state of Kentucky. That continued, and that continued to be her in-state locale. And that could be the case. I mean, that could be a reverse of maybe what you're thinking about here, is that you could be considered in-state and then the parent moves, but that student gets to continue to retain that type of scholarship. So that's a per school basis. You're going to have to do a little bit more research into that, and make sure that you ask that question. Do you know when the 2024-25 changes apply to your software? Thank you. I wish I could tell you that. I don't. I'm confident that it's probably going to be sometime